Hello and welcome to Journeys in Faith with Ann DeSantis here on this Friday evening. It's great to be here with all of you again. I have a returning guest. His name is Dave Plisky. Dave, it's so great to see you again.
Great to be here again. Thanks, Ann.
Oh, absolutely. Dave is the director of innovation at DeSales Media. Now, please correct me if your title is different than what I just said. You are the director of
Product
something.
product and innovation. Yeah,
Product
that's
and
right.
innovation. Very
Close
good. We
enough.
got it. Good. Now, you were on the show before, I believe it was at least more than a year ago.
Mhm,
And what you talked about was the discipleship study. I
mhm.
wondered if you could give kind of a recap of what you do of the discipleship study and just educate our audience on this.
Yeah, absolutely. DeSales Media is a ministry in the Diocese of Brooklyn. We're all about kind of bringing, formation to the front, in Brooklyn, and, uh, and so we conducted the study because we wanted to know we had a feeling that, when it comes to the discipleship funnel, um, it's the most kind of mature, spiritually mature of those who are doing the evangelization that brings people into the faith. That's who's doing that work. And we call those intentional disciples. And so we had the question, well, what are people's spiritual journeys like? And what are the unmet needs of those intentional disciples? And so we conducted a study, like any good marketer. I come from a marketing background. I don't want to rely on my hunches, and I don't want to assume everyone is just like me. So we wanted to get some statistically significant data. And so we conducted a study of over 3,000 mass attending Catholics across the US to try to understand the answer to those questions. What is discipleship like among Catholics in the US? And what we heard, when we talked before, we talked about a few of the kind of interesting findings that we had. One of which was around the idea of evangelization and sharing the faith. Um, we heard that while people are generally comfortable sharing the faith, so I think about 80% said that they were moderately or extremely comfortable sharing their faith, only around half were actually doing so, actually, talking about their faith with others. We listed a number of different barriers to evangelization, and thankfully, we heard that at least three quarters of them, I think 76% said that they were interested in receiving formation to advance further in the spiritual journey. So that was very encouraging, I think. And so at the end of that, kind of overall report that we released a couple years ago, which by the way, anyone is still able to get, you can get it at desalesmedia.org/discipleship for anyone watching or listening. Um, I still had two big questions, when it came to the data set that we had collected. One was, how spiritually mature are the people that we heard from? So we made sure that they attend, that they're Catholic, that they're in the U.S., and that they attend mass. But I still wondered, where do they fall along the discipleship kind of funnel, so to speak? And so we have the answers to that now. That's one of the new reports that we're releasing. The other one is the question, how do the answers correlate to one another? So just because we learned about whether people are receiving spiritual direction or how often they pray, does that then correlate with something like how close is my Catholic faith to the center of my life, or something like that? And so we now have those answers as well. That's the additional report that we're releasing, and we're doing all of this through kind of a brand called Religion to Reality. So you can find out everything about this at religiontoreality.org. It was a series of 6 webinars where we unpacked the data through one topic at a time. So we talked about spiritual direction, we talked about technology and faith, we talked about growth in faith, we talked about community, and we talked about generational differences in discipleship. And so all of that is available. The recordings as well as the decks are available for download and for viewing at religiontoreality.org. And I encourage people to go there and find the data, because instead of just dropping a bunch of kind of stats on people, we wanted to talk to experts to actually tease out, why is this important for the church, and how can people in the pews, especially people involved in ministry roles, use some of that data.
It's amazing. I really love this because I think we can learn so much from opening ourselves up to data and not just leaving it to guesswork, right? I mean, we
Mhm.
really need to do rely on that. And I know that last time that you were on the show, it was a real education for me because I'm involved in evangelization. And people like me and people who work at parishes, we need to be aware and kind of break away from just what's comfortable for us, right? I mean,
Right.
isn't that what it's about? Can you talk a little bit before we take our commercial break? What are some things that you learned personally just through this whole process? Now, we're this is being aired in January. You're mentioning the webinar series, so people can kind of go back and watch that, which it will be available in December 2024. We're taping that even before that.
Yeah.
Um, but you can always go back and learn. But what are some things that you've learned over the years about discipleship and about what's coming in the future and how we can make the church better than it is right now?
Yeah. So first of all, that we can't approach everyone as if we're just one monolithic Catholic, right? There's too much variation among Catholics, and so we need to be able to approach different subgroups differently. What I mean by that is, if someone is um, further along in their faith journey, but they don't feel like they have a need for growth, that's going to take a different type of approach and relationship building, maybe, than someone who is a little bit more open to receiving, formation resources and growth in faith. Another thing we learned was around that there is. I mean, this is maybe no surprise to anyone who's involved in attending mass, prayer, and spiritual direction. But we found that there is a clear link, statistically significant link between the three of those. They go hand in hand. One promotes the other, and that was wonderful to hear. Um, we heard that, people, so we asked about, is your growth and your faith kind of a long gradual path, a series of big kind of breakthrough moments, or a mix of both? And we heard that for most people it's a mix of both. And we now know that facilitating the possibility of an encounter is really important. So, and it's not always being treated as such. What I mean by that is, one of the biggest areas for growth across the board for the Catholic that we studied, which again was, a nationwide study, was the fact that people are not going on retreat. People do not feel like they are strong in making time for making a retreat, annually, or whatever it might be in their lives. When it comes to spiritual direction, we found that the more available it is, the more people would participate in it. Sounds obvious, but what was fascinating was literally 100% of the people who said that they are currently receiving spiritual direction, which was about a fifth of the sample size, um, said that spiritual direction is available in their home parish or another faith community to which they belong. So, wow, I mean, 100% is a crazy stat. Probably some people were a little bit maybe confused what we mean by spiritual direction. We're talking about that very intentional process of meeting with a spiritual director, usually once a month, but whatever kind of cadence makes sense for that person, to try to understand. So from a certified individual who's going to walk with you, and try to help you understand where is God showing up in your life, trying to help you deepen your faith in that way. And this is a interestingly, so, in the webinar on spiritual direction, we heard from Father Boniface Hicks, and we heard from Father Dr. Greg Kopchak, both of whom are coming from different areas, kind of within that spiritual direction expertise. And Father Boniface made the point that, spiritual direction largely was pretty unheard of as recently as 60 years ago, even among clergy and religious. It wasn't as common as you might think, and certainly not among laity, until really after the Second Vatican Council, and we heard the universal call to holiness. So it's wonderful that I think the Catholic Church has picked up this mantle in some way. Of course, the challenge with spiritual direction is, how do I find one? Like, I can't bother my pastor like that. He's burnt out and totally overwhelmed as it is. I would feel guilty of trying to take that time away from him. So it is kind of important to be able to know where to go to find that. And I hope you'll be able to find that on the Religion to Reality page. Again, religiontoreality.org. You can find some of those resources to help people that are maybe looking to deepen their faith in the way of spiritual direction.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I do have to do a little plug here.
Please.
I am the executive director for a Catholic nonprofit. A lot of my audience already knows that, with the St. Raymond Nonatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith at nonatus.org, where we offer free pastoral uh, pastoral care for individuals and families in crisis. Now, you don't have to be, quote, in crisis in order to reach out to us. But one of the things that we do offer is free spiritual direction with a Mercedarian friar, which is a religious order that I represent. Been representing them for 7 years now. And so just visit our website because we offer that free. Not everybody does, as you know, Dave. I mean, some people, they want like a stipend or something. We ask absolutely nothing. I mean, some people give us a donation here and there, but we never push that. It's really what they can do. I would say 90% of the people that do spiritual direction do it, and wind up not giving any stipend.
Mm.
So just wanted to mention that because it's just good to know, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and all of our priests that offer it they are masters of divinity. So, and they're very trained in that. So, anyway, but thank you, Dave. Wow, it's amazing, isn't it? It's such a needed service in the
Mm.
Catholic Church.
It is, and it really makes a huge difference in the life of the directee. I know the Diocese of Charleston recently has made a big effort into making this available in their diocese. So I just want to kind of give a shout out to them for
Yeah,
recognizing. They have a department actually of spiritual direction now, and I think they've organized something like 60 something spiritual directors that they've made available to the
amazing.
yeah. It really is.
See, it's good to hear how the church is working together, right? I interview, really, I think I'm into almost between 3 to 400 podcasts between this and the other podcasts that I do.
Mhm.
Um, I think we really need to come together as nonprofits and Catholic businesses to just work together, right? It's not a competition, is it? With
That's right.
any of this stuff, right? We want to offer these beautiful services. Now, Dave and everyone, we do have to take a quick break, a very quick break. So we'll be back in just a few. Thank you. Hello, this is Ann DeSantis. I'm an author and speaker with the Catholic Speakers Organization. To learn about my work and ministry or to book an event, visit the speaking events page at anndesantis.com. Thank you. We are back again. Good to be here. And Dave, I'm so grateful for you to be a guest on this program. And so we do have a lot more to talk about. So, what do you think, Dave, is important for the audience to know about what's going on with your ministry and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so we're trying to make the insights from the study that we've done as applicable as possible, and obviously we recognize that everyone is in a different place, right? Your listeners, I'm sure, are coming from across the church. You may find yourself simply a loyal member of the church and a devotee who shows up in the pews every week or every day even. You may find yourself leading ministries at your parish. You might find yourself in a leadership role at your diocese. You might find yourself leading some kind of ministry in a more national or international way. And I think any people in these different contexts will find different things to bring out. But so let's say that you are operating at a parish level, and you hear what I said about people are Catholics are saying of themselves, I'm not going on retreat enough. That's not something I have strengthening when it comes to the different aspects of discipleship. Well, you may know of a retreat house near you, or maybe a seminary or something like that that leads retreats, including for lay people. And so you may try to organize something, in your community to get people to recognize, hey, not only is this available, but it's actually, very, very useful in the spiritual life to come and just make that time for that quiet, still space, and you know, uh, to just enter into that contemplation, with God. We need to step back those times. And I know with kids, I have my first on the way, by the way, so we're gearing up for that. But I know that can be, challenging. You might think to yourself, how can I possibly take, a couple days away? But I think by and large, Americans do make time for vacations, but most of the time, those vacations are spent either hanging out on a beach or making, traveling around some foreign place. Those are beautiful things to do. I'm all for it. We all need our rest and relaxation, but I also think we need that dedicated time, to check in, and see what God is up to in our lives and where the Spirit's moving.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we live in a culture too, sort of that checkbox mentality of let's get things done. It's the weekend, I got to cut the lawn, I got to clean the house, I got to go to the store, I have to go to so and so's birthday party. I mean, the list goes on, doesn't it? And things like the Catholic retreat or making time for yourself, going to Eucharistic adoration, even maybe doing like one extra day a week of like daily mass or something. These are the things that many of us kind of put to the back burner because unfortunately we live in a society. I think that it's a very competitive society, and I think it's even filtered into the Catholic Church, don't you think? I mean, that whole competitive thing. I mean, even with things like holiness, like who are the great Catholic speakers out there, right? I mean, who are the A-listers, who are the
Mm,
B-listers? And we're not giving people a chance to just let others see the gifts and talents. And really, what does Christ want us to do in order to really be missionary disciples for Christ? Isn't it? Isn't that what
mm.
it's about? Is
Yeah,
really becoming that missionary disciple?
yeah.
Talk a little bit about that because I know that that's something the Holy Father has really tried to educate people on, isn't it? I mean, it's not just about ourselves. It is about others and about bringing others to Christ. And also, Dave, I have to say congratulations on your new baby coming
Thank
up,
you,
right? I mean,
thank you.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks
So
very much.
speak about missionary discipleship, if you would.
Yeah, discipleship comes down to trust. Ultimately, I mean, we at the Sales Media firmly believe that it's all about creating trust in relationship between people. That is where the foundation of any kind of, evangelization is going to take root. And I sometimes shy away from that word because I think that it smacks of having an agenda. Like I have something you don't have, and I'm going to not that it's proselytization even, but and I think there's a healthy version of this, but it all is done in relationship. What is relationship? It's listening and speaking in dialogue with the other one, in some kind of community or a space that is a trusted environment that's been created. So I'm probably saying things people know. Let me take this in a different place. When it comes to the modern reality of our lives. A lot of Catholics, I think, sometimes shy away from technology. One of the things that the study found is that people who pray, using digital aids like prayer apps, are more likely to pray. They're 5% more likely to pray every day of the week than those who don't. So, okay, that's an interesting stat. And yes, prayer is certainly an aspect of discipleship. You might say to yourself, "I already have a pretty robust prayer life. I don't feel like I need that." That may be true, but I think it's an important thing to keep in your mind for when you're talking to other people who maybe don't, pray every day or have a robust prayer life. I think that something like that creates, it's got like notifications. You can create kind of a schedule for yourself. You can have a little bit of accountability through community and that aspect. I don't want to plug any given app, but we did hear from the folks at Hallow on our tech and faith, webinar, the third one of the series. And there's a lot of good things, I think, for someone who does not already have an established prayer routine. So I think, if you're talking to someone It's an interesting question, right? Should we be diving kind of deeper into tech in our faith, or is faith something that should be kind of a time removed from faith, like in in digital detox, so to speak? I can see both sides, but if someone is maybe doesn't have a prayer life, but is on their phone all the time, that might be a way, when it's appropriate in the relationship. That might be something that is a kind of a soft suggestion that might be more appealing than other ways, because they're already listening to podcasts, or they're already exploring apps and things like that. What do you think of that, Anne?
With you 100%. And I think that in the church too, our demographics, obviously, they're always changing because the baby boom generation is getting older, right? And those millennials are now becoming like they already are the majority of the workforce, right? So, I mean,
Mhm.
that makes a major impact on just society itself when we look at that. And, my kids are, one is a millennial, the other one's Gen Z. And they just have a very modern, mindset on many things and even
Mhm.
faith.
Yeah,
And so I think it's just something that we need to really uh, try to immerse ourselves in, no matter what our
absolutely.
age. I mean, I'm pushing 60, so I mean, I'm borderline baby boomer myself, but
Hmm.
I've had to keep up with things, right? We all do.
Yeah,
We have to keep up.
yeah.
And I think we need to also get out of the mindset of grading ourselves. We come from the educational system where we're graded as an A, B, C, D, or an F, whatever. That's not the way our faith works, right? It's
Hmm.
nobody's there to say, well, she's a better prayer than this one over here, and
Hmm.
this one goes to daily mass every day or does the rosary. Everybody has a daily relationship with God, and it everything God does not measure the way that we do here on earth. He
Mm.
really doesn't.
Amen.
And
Yeah.
so I just think we need to keep all these things in mind when it comes to that relationship with God and with the Catholic Church, and how we can evangelize people, not to, get a spreadsheet out. And I mean, we need to keep track of things, right? But
Hmm.
it's not measured in God's eyes the way that we
Hmm.
do, as far as how many people we get, right?
Right.
Because you can get one person who's just on fire. It can be maybe a saint in the making, and
Hmm.
that person's presence and prayers can do far more than we can in our earthly ways, right?
Right, right. The study did do some work on generational differences in discipleship as well. And you mentioned you have one kid who's a millennial, one kid who's Gen
Mhm.
Z. Um, I myself, I'm an older millennial, and I'm sad to say that. So when it comes to prayer, time in prayer, both in terms of days per week and also kind of minutes in prayer as you spend a session in prayer. That's pretty much a linear line. The older a mass attending Catholic is, the longer they will spend in prayer, with the exception of millennials who spend even less time in prayer than Gen Z. So
Oh,
I'm sad to report
that
that.
makes
Don't
sense,
know what's
though.
going on there actually. Um,
Yeah.
but what's interesting, and maybe this goes flies in the face of what we were saying about the apps. So I want to balance that. Despite being labeled the digital generation, the youngest people are the ones who desire in-person community the most. And
Mm.
so I think we think like, oh, young people live digital lives. That's just what they do now. I think people will get burnt out pretty easily when they don't have actual, human contact and so forth. And so it's actually they are the ones who are starving for that the most. I remember I was working at my parish just kind of as an interim youth minister between when we didn't have one, and I had I brought the kids into, so this is like high school age kids. I brought them into adoration just for a half an hour, and they loved it. And honestly, like I think that the thing that was most impactful for them was, of course, they're in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament, but even more so, that was a digital detox for them. They actually weren't looking or feeling their their phones for even a half an hour, and they said that to me. They're like, "It was just so nice to be disconnected." I was like, "Yeah, it really is." These people need that. These people I don't know what's coming, but as the world, becomes more and more digitally focused, I think there's going to start to be kind of and we're already seeing this, right? We're already seeing kids who kind of like shun the smartphone, kind of movement, and use, flip phones on purpose. And now we have all these other options of like the Wise phone and all this stuff. Like there's it's starting, but it's kind of countercultural. I wonder if there will be a larger movement away from technology as we just kind of recognize the harms that it's doing. I mean, the reports have been coming out now, 10, 20 years into social media. We now know how kind of net negative that has been for society, and particularly the people who,
Mhm.
who are using it. What are we going to find out about AI or whatever else comes next? I think I'm interested to see what happens. And as someone who works in technology, it might sound weird, but I want to be our health comes first. It's like progress is not, this like random thing that we need to go after. We need to be very, very particular about how we, kind of extend ourselves in the digital
Mm.
forms.
Wow, there's so much to learn. We'll have to have you back again another time because this is a short podcast.
Yeah.
But I thank you for reaching out to me and for us to be able to do this. As we end the program, what final words would you have for the audience?
Pay attention to the different aspects of your life as a disciple. We call the project Religion to Reality because we feel like people are living compartmentalized lives, where they're going to church on Sunday, but they're not living these other aspects of their discipleship. And so, we encourage you to live an integrated life. We think that we're giving people ways to do that are data driven. So head over to religiontoreality.org to find out more.
Yes, Dave, thank you so much. And I invite all of you, when it comes to your faith and to my faith, we do need to be educated, right? So go to that website. Dave, thank you so much again.
Thanks, Ann.
And just a reminder to everyone that this podcast is the first and third Friday of every month. That's when it goes live at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, the Ann DeSantis YouTube channel. We're also on Facebook at Journeys in Faith with Ann DeSantis. God bless.